I'm always hesitant to use the UK as an example because there's some things in defence that the UK does well and there's some things it has done very badly. So there's some bits of it are a good example, but only some. The two or three things that as an outsider you would be looking for. One is you'd be looking for a strong parliamentary defence committee. Most parliamentary democracies have such committees. The question usually is how strong are they, i.e. how energetic are they, and do they have access to research to be able to actually test some questions themselves.
Maybe you can just explain to us, the basic functions of the committee, because we don't have any here.
Okay. It would be very straightforward, which is it would have probably 3 or 4 functions. The first one is every few years the Defence Ministry would put forward a new defence policy. What do we exist for? What are the threats? How should we prepare against those threats? That's the policy. And you'd expect the Parliamentary Committee on behalf of the whole of Parliament to really examine this question and to interrogate the Defence Ministry senior officials. The second thing is you'd expect them to be experts in the defence budget. So whilst all members of Parliament could not be expected to know the detail of how much they're going to spend on a personnel vehicle, this group should. So you'd expect them to be able to ask the budget chief of the ministry to come before them and to tell them why spending on the personnel vehicle, the plan has gone from value A to value B. The third thing you'd expect is you'd look for a forward plan on acquisitions. What are the major things that the ministry is seeking to spend over the next 5 or 10 years? And what is its strategy for doing so? Not down to who are the tenderers, that's too detailed. But just, are they going to be open tender? Are they going to be private negotiation? Are they going to be continuation of existing orders? Issues like that. And the last function you would expect is that they hold the ministry to account on what they spent against what they expected to spend. So if their budget for the year was $2 billion, you'd expect to see, well, you spent 1.9, why? Or just the usual kind of detail of actual versus planned spending. The second major thing you would expect after the Parliamentary Defence Committee is a strong audit function, external audit function.
External audit.
So in the UK, it's called the National Audit Office. It has different names in different countries. I don't know.
But it is a part of the government, right? Because here we also have this Department of Auditor General.
It's probably that in that case.
But which is under the Prime Minister's department.
I don't know the detail of your system, but that sounds like what it would be.
But is that considered as an external body? You mean external?
I mean external from the ministry,
Okay.
outside of the ministry. I don't mean outside of government entirely.
Okay.
And you'd expect that body to develop real expertise in analysing not only the accounts of the Defence Ministry, but also performance on major projects. So they would do a normal auditing function of the budget versus plan, but they would also do a study of the largest 10 projects that the ministry was undertaking over the course of a number of years to say it's going on plan, it's going off plan, it's over budget, under budget. And those would be the first two things that would give the community a lot of confidence that the defence budget was well and properly scrutinised.
On the question of parliamentary committee, I suppose that it is a bipartisan committee, right?
Yes.
Different from the ruling parties as well as the opposition parties.
Usually, yes.
Okay, so but then how do you? The problem here is that our MPs are not expertise in any of these issues. So how do you actually cultivate MPs who can,
Well, I think that's not as hard as it sounds. The first is it's part of a normal parliamentary function, which is just spending against plan, and that doesn't need any particularly special expertise. The second is usually over the course of a period of years, a number of MPs just do become expert in the subject because they have sat on this committee, they've been on it, they've come off it, they've gone on it again over the course of a career as an MP. And what I think becomes normal is that some MPs just get to really understand the subject. And the final thing is, what you will also see is you will see the Defence Ministry recognise that it's in its interest to ensure that the MPs are reasonably knowledgeable, because otherwise you can get a lot of noise and discussion about some issue that genuinely is stupid and small,
This is what happened.
and actually you'd rather have an informed discussion. So you might well find that the Ministry asks the MPs to come in for briefing sessions and things like that, so that they become, you know, reasonably competent on the defence budget.
Is there a necessity that, you know, like in some countries, like in South Korea, they have these ombudsman systems, and they have all sort of external bodies, you know, that perform the check balance on the procurement? Or is you know, or you think that, you know, fundamentally we just need these two, then is appropriate?
Actually, I think some measure of independent oversight is a good thing. Defence is complex,
Yes.
and actually, even though what I've described to you is, I think, typical of a good parliamentary and auditing system, the evidence is they still go wrong.
Okay.
You know, so it clearly doesn't quite work. One model that we have seen is using an outside independent person to act either as an ombudsman or as an expert overseer, independent overseer of major procurements. And quite often that has worked well. To take the example of South Korea, about 5 years ago, I think now, they tried out this system of putting in an independent ombudsman to scrutinize defense spending. And I think it worked quite well. At the moment, it's under some pressure. But I think that's more to do with local political circumstances in Korea than it is to do with whether the system works or not. There's another system that you see in a number of countries where for major procurements they get a respected independent person, not necessarily part of a permanent structure like an ombudsman, to act as an independent monitor of major procurements. So Mexico, for example, has done this rather well. And they pick the most important and sensitive 10 or 15 procurements each year, and then they use a respected independent person who is, for example, a professor of engineering at the main university, that kind of person, to act as an independent monitor of those procurements. Now, I think that's quite a good system, and I think it's certainly good if you're looking to make immediate improvements and shifts in the way that the system operates.